Good. Good afternoon, good morning, everybody else. I don't know where you're listening us from. I hope you're well, and I'm excited to be here today, another special day, really talking more about how we can be part of a community, not only just talking about being on our way, African women in Europe or African women in trade, but really joining up together with the continent. And today we are excited to have the African Women in Trade Kenya workshop. We have our guests here. They're all excited as well to be with us. And our guest of honor is here, and Anne is here. But my work today is actually not this stage. It was just to welcome you all and give you a little bit about who AWT are. And some of you who don't know me, my name is Joy Tens, the founder of African Women in Trade, as well as African Women in Europe. So I'm going to give you an overview who we are, so that we are all we are aligned, and you can relate to the topics we have today and why we choose particular topics to be discussed on today. So going straight to my presentation that you're seeing in front of you. So who are African Women in Trade? So African Women in Trade was an organization that started with a story of African women in Europe wanting to connect and being part of the organization. And our vision was to create a platform to connect and enable women and youth to trade under Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And our mission really grew quite a lot with the focus of wanting to connect. And we, out from the women, we noticed that on the platform that we have over 4,000 women, there were special things that the women really wanted. And we did a survey, and after 1 year, speaking right now, started in 2021, there were 4 pillars were very clear that the women really wanted to focus on. And one of them, as you can see, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, was to share information. Information is everything, and information is not useful if it's not shared. And we noticed we always had a lot of information that we could share with our continent business women who are on different platforms. Of course, social platform were our main target: YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. So we created a lot of platform where we can share this information. We also have our own website. If you haven't had a look at it, www.africawomenintrade.com, where you are encouraged to register there as a member. We have a small fee there. So we do send email newsletters on a weekly basis according to what information we receive from all our networks. And another part that was very important was the market access. Market access is the most important thing, because we tell our members, we notice that they have very great products. And these products, they were already packaged, well ready for export. But what were the issues? So we focus a lot, mainly with market access, providing trade platform for members to trade national, globally, and also regional. We also want to partner with e-commerce to make sure that the products are also on the right platform, so that our members can sell. And because we believe this is part of creation of job, if we are able to sell the products. And of course, we notice, of course, when a business wants to sell globally or want to grow, there is need of finance, of course. And this is where we come in, or even to start. So for the startups, we have also found grants in so many organizations that were able to give women to start grants, and we share this information along, and as well as of financial institutions, especially when you have big orders and you need to grow really fast. So this was part of our objectives. Capacity building was also a very important one. We noticed our women were in informal section. We need to bring them up to the trade, and as you know, women, we are not yet in this space of trade. We are doing businesses, but we need to get into this space. And we partner with organizations like She Trades, and they are there to support us with a lot of these support trainings. So our objectives, as you said, it's all about to empower African women in trade, enable trades within Africa and global markets, to inform and share useful information, and as well as to address the SDGs for creation of jobs, eradicate poverty, and improve Africa economy. And this goes on as you see, our pillars really is integrated according to our objectives, especially the last one, to be part of policy influencers by sharing the government institutions about the challenges as well as the good practice, so that we communicate this information when these policies are made. They are also aware, are they really working on the ground, and what are the hindrances? So we collect this information, are able to share with these institutions as well. Of course, values are the most important thing when you're doing businesses. Trust, collaboration is one of our major ones. As I can say, they're respecting each other. We know we're the same continent, but we also have different way of doing things and cultures. So we need to build trust. And I have to say, African Women in Trade, we have one full year to really get to know each other, knowing that during COVID, we haven't even met. So what about doing business without seeing each other? And this is something that we have built on the platform, and that was one of our main focus. Our interest, as you can see, is going all around. Agriculture is our main one. We also focus also on export, import, constructions, and technology. Also health, which is not in here and is coming up very strongly as well. We are also helping with that. As you can see, we have few products that we have managed within that short time. Products were already ready, nothing that AWT did around here apart from putting the logo on it and one of them, but the products were ready. We were able to help them to export locally, and now we are looking into the global markets. It's coffee from Kenya, you have master tea from Nigeria, and few other products that we are also helping to move into that direction. So you'll see a little bit success that we have done around our platform. We have 4,000 women on our platform. We facilitate almost 20 free business grants through a video project, that's a GIZ program that is between diaspora and African community, and it's even going on. So if you know a diaspora who is in one of the countries, Germany, Holland, France, and a few more other countries, you can confront them and see how you can do business together. And also we have startups that we have prepared them for pitching, and the products are already ready for investors, and we are sharing this with all our investors. And of course, several made in African Valley products, as I've shown you there, and partnering with several organizations, which we believe is one of the biggest part of success of the AWT, is partnering with other organizations. Of course, we cannot do this without a big team. As you can see, the team is growing today. Is Kenya is here, and Gaida there is there with Sophie from Kirago from Kenya, who are also working very closely with us, which is the topic for today. They are bringing up webinar, which they'll be doing this regularly. We have already had the youth program. If you haven't seen it, check on YouTube channel. And also we have already done and Cameroon as well. So the other programs are coming up. Keep following us on our platform and our social platform. We'll be sharing more information on what we do. So we work with a lot of partners, as you can see, and this is always growing day by day. And don't forget our big expo that is coming. We are going to meet for the first time in South Africa, and we're so excited about this program because it will bring us to meet each other. We have not met each other, but this will be an opportunity to really get to know your product. Don't forget, this is an expo with a conference on it, and the awards, of course, because we want to connect you with investors, even across the continent, globally, and this will be a great opportunity for you to. The platform is already ready. We can share with you the links on the chat shortly, so that you can have a look what is there for you. You can start booking for your exhibition, but make sure your products are ready for export, right? Whether in the continent or across the continent. So we are looking for ready products, made in Africa products as well. We Youth program is something that is coming up. We'll be sharing with you also a lot of information in a magazine that is a very useful one. And of course, marketplace that we already partnered with Farmers Network that is now out with the app. and I mentioned to you earlier on. So those are the programs that we are seeing coming up in the next future, and we'll be looking forward to connect with you again in another program as well every other time. But today, let's give all our attention to our guest speakers of today, because they are the ones who are really here for this spotlight. It's not, that was just to give you an over. And I want to hand over this stage back to Anne. Anne, how are you? How is Kenya?
Thanks, Joy. And Kenya is fabulous. It's good, as you can see, I'm in Nairobi, the background. And yes, and I'm very excited today to actually bring in Anne Monene. So thank you, Joy, for the platform for African Women in Trade, so that all of us can get this information that we really, really, really need. So again, Anne Monene, thank you for joining us today. I know for everyone who's joined in and people who are watching us on YouTube, you will learn a lot from this lady who's been not only an entrepreneur, but is a trade finance consultant. And what I want to do, Anne, before we go into the discussion, I just want to give a brief overview about what Anne Monene has done, so that you can have an idea about who she is and why we thought at Africa Women in Trade there should be a great person to talk about trade finance solutions for African SMEs. All right, so Anne Monene is an independent financial advisor and a trade finance consultant with over 20 years experience in accounting, finance, and entrepreneurship. Anne has worked as a mortgage and finance advisor in London for 6 years, followed by building a small perfume business into a regional and international franchise. Her story was featured by Equity Bank's Road to Success program. So not only does she understand trade finance, she is an entrepreneur. And for all of us who are entrepreneurs, you know that makes a difference. Someone who understands the journey and who can provide the solutions. So among her international engagement, Anne has been a guest speaker at Chatham House, Berlin, the Royal Institute of International Affairs. And in 2016, Anne was the Kenyan representative of African Women Entrepreneurship Program in the US, a program that seeks to equip African businesswomen and SMEs with the tools and opportunities to accelerate the growth of their business. Her story was also featured in the Business Daily here in Kenya. Anne Monene holds a master's in financial management from the University of London. She has a BCom in accounting and business administration from Daystar University here in Kenya. She's a CPA. She's certified for financial advisors and certificate in mortgage advice and practice from the Institute of Financial Services UK, and diploma in leadership and theology. And Anne has been a member and treasurer of the Organization of Women in International Trade, AWT here in Nairobi. And she's a mentor at the university, at the Mount Kenya University, and she's an entrepreneurship trainer. So as you can see, Anne has done a lot. She has a lot to offer, not only for us in Kenya, but across Africa and across the globe. So I'm very excited to have her talk to us about what exactly she is doing at Euro-Exim Bank and how she can support us as SMEs to access trade finance. So Anne, welcome. I want us to get right in. I will ask you a few questions so that then you can have clarity for us really around trade finance. So Anne Monene, you know, the first thing is we all know there's a lot of opportunities when you participate in import and export trade, right? So one of the main things is we cannot box ourselves and just say we only trade in Kenya. We have to find opportunities outside our borders. And for me, I always say, you know, we need to go global, right? And of course, you start off with the East Africa community, you go into the Comesa region, you go into Africa, especially now because of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. But there are very many opportunities globally. But of course, the main challenges are always, how do I access finance, right? How do I access finance? I have the market, there's already market, I have a contract, but finance is a challenge. So Anne, what do you think, from your experience as a trade finance consultant, do you think are the challenges that many African SMEs are facing when they're accessing international trade finance? And what is it that you can do for them so that when we leave this workshop today, they are ready to reach out to you at Euro Exim Bank. You have the solution, and let's start doing business. So Anne, go ahead and let us know what it is that you think are the challenges so that we can start providing the solutions for the SMEs in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of us. It's a pleasure to be on this forum today. Thank you for the invite. I'm very passionate about entrepreneurship. I'm very passionate about women in trade because I've been an entrepreneur myself, so I know how the journey is like. So thank you for having me. Now, one of the greatest challenges that I think that people in business face is lack of information. Most of the time, there could be too much information out there. There could be too little, but we have access to that information. And maybe sometimes when we get that information, we may not really know how to process it, how to get the right information, and how to go about it. So that's a big challenge. And thank you for this forum. Today we are going to discuss the solutions that are available to trade finance or in trade finance for traders. The other challenge I find in this market is trust. If you're doing international trade, you are sitting in your country, you are importing from a different country, miles away from you, then there's an issue of trust. The supplier would not want to trust you immediately with the product, and you would not want to pay immediately. So there is this mistrust, not really mistrust, but there is lack of trust in the process. So that becomes a challenge or a barrier to trade. It takes time to work on the trust or to build trust, but over time, it's done. We can only do business with people we know, with people we trust. So it's a process. It's a relationship that takes times to create. It can take quite some time, but yeah, we have to address that issue of lack of trust. Now, when it comes to financial issues, finances, every time you go into your local bank, you want to apply for a loan, for a facility, there's always one word that puts us down: collateral. That is the biggest word, I think, in an entrepreneur's or a trader's mind. That anytime you'd want to grow your business, you know one thing that the financial would ask for is collateral. Most of the time, we don't have that. We have a clear picture of what we want to do, how we want to grow the business, but that's one thing that keeps us from progressing as much as we would want to. So again, today we are going to address how to overcome the challenge of lack of collateral, lack of security. Then I think the other challenge that faces traders is structure and documentation. You may want to import or to export, but again, you don't have the right structures. You don't have the right documentation. So how do you go about this? Who are out there who can help you do that? So we're going to address the issue of lack of structure and lack of documentation. And of course, there's a big barrier of payment. If you're sitting in your local country and you need to pay this company outside your country, then there is that fear that if you make payment, then you'll not receive the goods. So how do we address the issue of payment? At what point should you pay? At what point do you feel that this is a transaction worth putting in your money? We've all had stories of maybe stories, maybe not even stories, maybe it's you who has lost some money in a transaction. So today we are going to explore how we are going to overcome that challenge. So, Anne, I think those are the 5 main challenges that we face in business as traders.
Wow, thanks, Anne Manene, for painting that picture. I mean, what I got, and I believe a lot of the businesses who are listening in have experienced that. You really mentioned about information. which is why I'm very glad that the African Women in Trade is doing this. That's the same thing we at Regal Africa have said. We are providing the right information so people make the right decision. You mentioned about building relationships. So I'm glad you brought that up. Collateral. We keep hearing about collateral, and I'm hoping the solutions you will tell us have collateral is really not the basis for it, because that's what limits many SMEs here in Africa from taking part in these transactions. And then, of course, I like the fact that you mentioned that we as business people need to work with people who know these things. The basis of why you need to work with a consultant or someone to advise you in the right way, because sometimes if we do it alone, we make the wrong decisions. And in business, you cannot make the wrong decision. So I'm very glad that you're able to paint that picture and really share that with us. So to go into the meat of things, we at the Africa Women in Trade, we're all about practical solutions. I mean, I know a lot of people have had a lot of information, and then we in business are like, no, in reality, how does this work? So Anne, can you just let us know, how do you at the Euro Exim Bank, how do you support SMEs? Like, tell us, work with us. I am an SME. I have this particular product. I want to export it to Europe. I have this particular product. I want to export it to South Africa, right? How do I go about doing it, right? We have master teas from Nigeria. They want to access, the European market. Joy Zenz with African Women in Trade has gotten her that market. She wants finance. How will Euro Exim Bank help her? So, Anne, if you could really tell us step by step, that would be really great, because we really need practical solutions to this thing.
Okay, thank you, Anne. The bit about the lack of, how do we address the lack of information? It's, as you've pointed out, it's working with a consultant, with people who know or who consult for banks and for organizations that provide these services. Now, Euro Exim Bank is based in St. Lucia and has a UK and has an office based in UK. Our niche is trade finance. We offer instruments of trade. Now, we do not give cash. We offer only instruments. Now, I'll take an example of a person who is seated in Kenya and would want to import raw material from, let's say, India. What we do to such a person is, once they are import ready, they have set up their companies and they are import ready. By saying that they've set up their company, it doesn't mean that it's a company that has been existent for so many years. We are also open to working with startups. We only have to be sure or to look at their business model and understand how they want to do that transaction. So we have a person sitting in Kenya and they want to import raw material. So what we do is they will have a pro forma invoice. They will negotiate with their supplier and agree on the terms of credit. At Euro Exim Bank, we can do anything from 30 days to 360 days. So once they agree with their supplier, for example, we can take about 180 days. Then that should be the terms of payment on the pro forma invoice. So that will be written down as payment, letter of credit, 180 days. That will enable us to draft a letters of credit. Now, after the draft is done, it will be agreed by the three parties, the buyer, the supplier, and us. So if all of us agree on it, we stamp on it, and then it will be ready for issue. Now, the supplier would not be willing to issue credit most of the time when they are not backed up by documentation. And this is where the letter of credit comes in handy. With the strength of a letter of credit, then the supplier is willing to give the buyer credit. So after the draft is done, then the letter of credit is issued. Then the supplier can ship the goods to Kenya or whichever region the goods are going to. So that's how it works, and it's quite a straightforward process. the thing about it is that not a lot of people know what is available out there. We are used to a system where cash is king, but it's still king, but there are still options to trade. And as I said before, EuroExim Bank, our niche is trade finance. That is what we do best.
Wow. So Anne, basically you're saying that the alternative funding that EuroExim Bank is saying is we're going to make sure the transaction happens between you and your supplier. And what you present are the instruments for trade finance to make this thing happen. Because without that, then that trust issue that you're talking about doesn't happen, right? They can't supply you, you don't have the money for funding. So how does that work? But EuroExim Bank becomes the link to make sure that this transaction happens. That is really great. But then, Anne, can you know, when we talk about startups, what do you mean by startup with EuroExim Bank? Because I'm just saying I could set up my company today, and like you said, I want to buy something from India. I've never done any transaction before. I don't have audited accounts. We don't have, I'm not ready for maybe what a local commercial bank would want for me to access trade finance. So could you clarify in regards to what is a startup, in regards to EuroExim Bank? And also, it would be great if you could also clarify regarding your minimum transaction size. For us as SMEs, sometimes we're not doing really large, commodity trading. So if you could do those two things, I think that would be good for us as businesses listening in to say, how can EuroExim Bank help us?
Okay, let me give you a scenario here. You've been in you as a person, maybe you've been in business for quite a while. Then you go form another company and you want to do something else. You still have your years of experience as a business person, but because you're starting another business, that is always counted as a startup by local financiers. But you see, it's not really that, because you have all those years of experience and you know how to run this. By a startup, we are not referring to a very, okay, you know what I mean? I'm referring to a business that is starting. At the same time, there's a person who is behind it, who has an experience of running the business. Those are the startups that you're looking for. Now, because again, if you walk into banks, sometimes they'll look at the proposal, they will not help you, they will not give you the finances that you need. So we are open to those ones. We are open to look at what the trader is willing to do or would want to undertake. After we analyze it, then we'll decide whether it's a venture that we are willing to look into or not. Now, the minimum transaction that we can do is we base our fee on a transaction of $100,000, and the fee would be, the issuing fee for the instrument will be $5,000. That is not to say that we cannot do an instrument less than that. We can do an instrument of $1,000 if the trader is willing to pay $5,000. So I hope I'm clear. We can do the average is $100,000 and the fee is $5,000. However, we can offer an instrument of even $20,000 or $30,000, so long as a trader is willing to pay our minimum fee or the issuing fee of $5,000. Now, let me mention something about export, because I gave an example of imports. Now, for export, once you are export ready and your products are ready for export, normally you'll be required to provide the financial guarantees. So that's where EuroExim comes in handy and provide you the document. One point that I must emphasize at this moment is that all our instruments are unsecured. We will not go around asking you for collateral. That's how we address the issue of lack of collateral. Once this barrier is removed, then trade becomes easy. The only thing that you need to think through is just the issuing fee. For me, That's a big win in trade. I think I've answered the two questions about startup and the minimum transaction.
Yes, so yes, you're quite clear about that. So experience is important. So that's something you'll be looking at. And you mentioned $100,000, which is 10 million Kenya shillings. But if somebody wants, especially because we have many SMEs who are participating in digital trade, the transaction would be less than 10 million. But what you're saying is, as long as they're willing to pay the 5,000 US dollars, then you're willing to take on the transaction if it's viable. Okay, so I think for all of you business people, you say they are ready, they're willing. There's a cost implication, but at least you get the money. So it's again looking at your business and say, is it worthwhile me taking this money for me to do this transaction? And then of course that goes into pricing. It comes a lot to many things. I also liked what you talked about export. One of the things that African Women in Trade are doing is really saying we need to export more. We need to export more from Africa to the rest of the world. So I like the fact that you mentioned about financial guarantees and the fact that they're unsecured. That was music to my ears and maybe music to very many people, because the issue we have in Kenya is all about collateral. I mean, I'm in business. I've probably taken all my savings. I've sold all my assets because I believe in this business. So when you ask me to bring collateral and I'm like, I'm taking a risk, we really definitely need alternative sources of funding. So really great to hear that. I think maybe if you can, Anne, if you can talk to us more about the issuing fee for the financial guarantee. Is it set? Does it depend on many variables? What exactly is the issuing fee by Euro-Exim Bank?
Now, before I address the issuing fee, let me mention the third category of traders we normally take care of. That is the contractors.
Okay.
When you're doing contracts, then you'll have to do bid bonds, you'll have to do performance guarantee. We take care of all that. Now, our issuing fee is typically ranges from 3.5 to 7.5% of the transaction value. So whatever instrument you're looking for, let's say it's $1 million, the issuing fee will range between that 3.5 to 7.5. Now, the issuing fee is based on three things or three factors. One, it's a verbiage, how the wording on the instruments, that's a verbiage. The other thing is the tenure, how long the instrument, whether it's 3 months or 6 months or 12 months. And the third is the amount. Of course, the higher the amount, then maybe the lower the charge will be. So those are the three things that determine. But at any one point, we assess the risk profile of the client, and that is what will also determine the rate that the bank will charge.
Okay. So Anne, you mentioned risk profile. I mean, we know as bankers, because my previous career was in banking, it's all about risk. So how do you show the financier that you're less risky so that you get lower payments, right? But the main thing here is when you're presenting this to, say, for example, Euro-Exim Bank, can you clarify for us in regards to documentation? Do you work with certain people who help us as SMEs to prepare so that by the time we're coming to you, it's an easier yes than a no? How does Euro-Exim Bank work, or do you as a consultant work directly with these SMEs to make sure that the documentation is right, and if there's anything missing, then you help them? How does that look like when you're working with African SMEs in regards to documentation? Because that's a big issue.
Yes, it is a big issue. And coming from a financial background and also an accounting background, I know where it bites most. So I know the pain of not having everything in order. And most of the time, our accounts really don't reflect where our business are. That's always a fact of the matter. But what I would say is that when I have when we have the first meeting with the customer, for example, myself as a trade finance consultant, then I walk through the client what exactly they need to apply for the instruments, for the trade finance instrument, let's say letters of credit. So I'll give them a list of requirements that we need. And basically, it's just the same requirements that are normally asked by the local banks or the traditional banks. The only thing that that will not be in the list is collateral. Now, having said that, there's also the issue of course, if you are a startup company, as I expounded before, then we'll not be looking at the 3 years audited account. We would want to see how you propose your business will do or will run. We are looking for management accounts to be able to make that decision. What we normally do is I don't do underwriting myself. My job is very simple. Prepare the customer, get the documents that are needed, and then the back office. We have a whole team that backs us up, based in St. Lucia, UK, and the global back office is in India. So they're the people who will do the underwriting and check the documentation. Coming back to how we prepare the customer, for me is that if I would find that the customer is not ready, then I would ask them maybe to see an accountant and get their documents ready if they need the services of an accountant. But basically, it's the same document that we all know about: the registration certificate, the list of shareholders or the directors, the certificate of trading. So there's absolutely nothing new in there. But again, it could be a challenge for some business people, but there are always ways to overcome that. And I mean, you also have to have the bank statement that we would want to see that the trader is willing and able to pay the fees that is required to issue the instrument.
Okay, thank you, Anne, for clarifying that. But I can tell you, being in business, being an advisor, things we think which are very simple, like management account, audited account, I think a lot of SMEs don't do, which we encourage them at Regal Africa. In fact, we actually offer accounting outsourcing, so that if someone thinks that's a huge cost to have an accountant there, we actually do the outsourcing so that it's more affordable. So what I'm just saying is sometimes it seems like, oh, everyone has their books. Not necessarily. So I'm glad to hear that as a consultant, you then work with them and prepare them, because we are now showing them a different alternative way of funding as opposed to the normal, which has been go to the bank, right? Most people go into the bank tells them X, Y, Z, and they ask for collateral, they don't have, and so now they say, look, I will not participate in import and export trade. But then now your Exim Bank is saying, as long as you have the requirement, then we will help you with that. And you mentioned about a good proposal. So someone has to be able to show that they have already the contracts, they will be able to pay back. You really need a good proposal. So that is definitely good to know. Where would they get a list of requirements? Is it when they apply for the trade finance facility, or is it, or like, where do people get this information?
During our very first interactions, I'll be able to give them a list of requirements. But as I said, it's just a general list of requirements for any financial services that somebody is looking for. But again, having mentioned that, then we'll go to the specific.
Great.
Then we'll be looking at the pro forma invoice. If they want to export and they're looking for financial guarantee, then they'll be looking at the contract or the documents that support that.
All right. So Anne, thanks for that. I think what I would like for the people who are with us on Zoom, if you have any questions, please write them on the chat, because what I wanted, Anne, for you to do is just give us a presentation about totality, what it is that you do at Euro-Exim Bank, and maybe add on to what you have just shared with us. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please put them on the chat. And right after Anne Monena's presentation, we will be able to now answer, she will be able to answer any questions. So, so Anne, let me go ahead and share my screen so that you can do the presentation, right? Give me a moment. All right, and do you see my screen?
I think it's coming up.
Okay. Has it come up?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, it's
Great. So now we can go through it. Just let me know if you want me to move to the next slide.
all right. It's not yet on my screen, but
Yes,
I
we can
go
see
ahead.
it from here.
Yes. Okay, we can go ahead then. Euro-Exim Bank, our motto is helping you stay ahead of the game, or that is what we'd want us or help you to do. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about us. We are headquartered in St. Lucia with a representative office in London and a back office in India. I had shared that information. We hold a Class A license in St. Lucia. Euro-Exim Bank is part of CAB, which is a Caribbean Association of Bankers. And we've been serving global clients across all industries for more than 5 years now. We've just jumped the 5 years. So we are no longer 4 years, we are 5 years now. Our net worth is $200 million. And we are able to write or give out instruments up to 3.33 billion USD. Our bank is valued at $3.5 billion by independent valuation agency. Moving on, our rating is 5A3. It's very important to the bankers because that's what they check. And then very important to note that we don't have any public liability. We are privately held. And the total strength of Euro-Exim Bank, both at the front and the back, is close to 200. We have a global sales team of 2,000 plus, covering right now we are in more than 100 countries. We are scheduled to open offices in India and UAE and Singapore. Moving on, we serve an increasing demand for financial instruments such as letters of credit, standby letters of credit, bank guarantees, performance bonds, offshore bank accounts for both corporate and individuals. And we also have a payment gateway for merchants. Now, we have very highly trained and specialized team at the office and at the back office as well, and for us as consultant. We know that at any one time we do not want to engage in illegal activities, so we are able to detect this. And also, we do a lot of due diligence in our documentation so that we comply to all the requirements in financial services. At the moment, we consider ourselves a leading international finance institution. And actually, a few months ago, we awarded as one of the most innovative bank in terms of financial trade. So I'll move ahead and talk about the products that we do. Let's focus on the non-fund-based products. Our target clients here is importers and traders. For these two target groups, we have letters of credit, MT 710. We have Site LC. Site LC means that the document has to be, or the buyer has to make payment once the documents have been presented. USAN's letter of credit is where the buyer makes payment after receipt of goods. We have what we call back-to-back and front-to-back LCs. This means that Euro Bank is able to receive an LC and issue an LC. The greatest thing about the letters of credit we do, they are transferable and divisible. So we can receive an LC, let's say let me use an example of 100,000, and then we can issue a 50 or an 80 or a 60. So we are able to transfer and divide up the LC. Then we have pre-advice services. Maybe before we issue a document, the bank or the supplier would want some pre-advice services as well as the buyer. So we are able to do that. On the next slide, we have contractors and exporters. Here we're looking at the bank guarantee. For contractors, I talked about the guarantees we offer them. So we do the tender guarantee, we do the security guarantee, we do the performance bank guarantee, we do the advance payment guarantee, and we do the retention guarantee. So we're able to take care of all the documents that a contractor would need. For exporters, we do the financial guarantee, we do the performance bank guarantee, we do the performance bond, we also do advance payment guarantee. For those of us who are still new in trade or would want to understand more, especially when you're talking about advance payment guarantee, before a payment is made, then the contractor or the employer will ask you to give them a guarantee. That's what we mean by advance payment guarantee. So all these documents, you'll be able to get them from us. And as I said before, we do not need security for any of this. Moving on to the next page, we have non-fund-based products continuing. We are talking about standby letters of credit. We are talking about ready, willing, and able services, proof of funds, block funds, and comfort letter. When you're in trade finance, at any one given time, you need some of these documents. Whether it's ready, willing, and able service or block funds or proof of funds, at one point you need to show that you have the funds in your account. Or you need a document from a bank to give the other bank a comfort that you are able to meet your obligation. So those are some of the documents that we prepare to facilitate trade. I move on to fund-based products on the next page. Fund-based products are offshore banking services. We open accounts for both individuals and corporates. We have merchant accounts. This is where you want an account to hold the money, where you use that amount to pay off your supplier. We have escrow services. We have virtual Visa cards and charge cards. We do correspondent banking services, And then we also do money remittance services. Moving on, we are looking at the documentation here. What documentation do you require? And I think this is one of the questions that Anne had asked earlier. The great thing about EXIM Bank is once you just complete the initial application form with us, if let's say you want a letter of credit or a standby letter of credit, then that's the only document that you will send to us. Because after that, then we'll give you a eKYC link where you can be able to load your own document. So we would want a eKYC covering letter. We will provide a checklist. We will provide the indemnity and guarantee deed documents. Just to highlight that when you're having documents, trade documents from us, because you're not providing security, then we take a guarantee from the directors of the company. So we'll provide the documents. All you need to do is to sign them up. We'll have the application and agreement. We'll have the bill of exchange. We need the board resolution. It's very important because sometimes when documentation is not done right, then you'll have one member of the board saying that that was not their wish. So we want a board resolution. Then we'll ask for pro forma invoice and sales purchase agreement. Specifically, this is for letters of credit. If you're doing something for the contractor, then it will be the agreement, the contract, yes. Now, once we onboard you as a customer, then any other transaction you do will be much easier. We'll be looking for just an application form and the agreement, bill of exchange, board resolution, and the pro forma invoice and the sale purchase agreement for that particular transaction. So you don't have to go through the process again. Now, let's talk about the issuing charges. Earlier, I had mentioned that our issuing charges are between 3.5 to 7.5% of the transaction value. And these are just examples. For example, standby letter of credit of bank guarantee, 90 days validity will be around 4.5%. All these examples are for a medium risk company. The prices will definitely depend on the transaction risk, tenure, and amount. However, we try to generalize for all transactions below $1 million. So this is the average figures we are giving. When you scroll down, you'll be able to see USANS LC 360 days validity, then that comes to 7.5%. Our minimum fee is $5,000 as I mentioned earlier. And we can take any transaction, but we do on average $100,000. That's a typical transaction, or how we base our fee on that. Just important to note that, or to highlight that we can do any transaction even above $1 million. We're able to do that, and more, much more. But of course, with that, we'll do enhanced due diligence. But that's on our back end. Now, on the next slide, we'll see the unique selling points of EXIM Bank. I'd like us to just spend a minute and compare what we offer and what is out there. Let's talk about issuing cost. Public sector banks, they will do 1.2 to 1.8 per annum. Private banks will do 2.4 to 3.6 per annum. EXIM, we do 3.5 to 7.5 per annum. That depends on the type of instrument requested. Guarantees, we have personal and corporate guarantees. For EuroExim, we do personal guarantees. Securitization, we have 100%. EuroExim, we have nil. Margin money, 5 to 15%. EuroExim, we have nil. Collateral, hard collateral, 85 to 95%. For private banks, it's 75 to 95%. EuroExim, no collateral at all. Continuing to the next slide, we are saying that we structure our facilities to be able to give you a product where we are not going to ask for collateral and utilize margin money. Our minimum turnaround time is quite great. We always work as fast as we can. But again, you have to remember there are three parties to this transaction. There's a supplier, there's a buyer, and then there's EuroExim in between. If you provide the documents when you need it, if the supplier does what they are supposed to do, then we should be able to turn around quite fast. So we've completed over 1,000. We are able to complete over 1,500 transactions every year. We work with emerging economy and new companies, as explained before. Now, as the holder of international Class A license, EuroExim can provide instruments such as bank guarantee, performance bond, letters of credit, standby letters of credit facilities to clients across all geographies. We have a dedicated sales team and also a very strong back office, and we are in over 100 countries. Now, the great thing I like working with EuroExim Bank is their flexibility. We work on case-to-case basis so that we're able to understand the customer and provide them a solution. Remember, in trade, in any business, it's what you can do to a customer that is important. It's providing that solution that the customer needs that is very important. Moving on to the next slide. Off balance sheet transactions, we're able to undertake that. We have platforms that are enabled by AI and blockchain, which supports international trade processing. We do electronic onboarding of customers. As I discussed earlier, we'll give you a link that you're able to upload your own documents. Now, it's very important, again, when we come to this, the next point that about legal fees and stamp duties. You know, when you're doing, when you're dealing with collateral, then you incur all these fees. But for us, because we are not dealing with collateral, then we do not need to incur those fees, or the customer does not need to incur those fees. I have been I've been in business for quite a while, so I'm part of this business community. So that's why I keep saying we. So I lose we, is it EuroExim Bank or the entrepreneurs? So I'm part of you, I'm part of us. Now, strong multinational back office. I sit in Kenya, we have a consultant across the world. Sitting in Kenya, I can originate transactions from any country. So feel free, if you are in a different country other than Kenya, I can still be able to handle that transaction. We have the offshore account facilities where you can keep your money and you can receive money as well in that account. Class A banking license permit activities such as loan deposit and financing across the globe. I wish to emphasize that our niche is trade finance. It's providing international trade facility documents. But again, we are licensed to do that. Now, for us to be able to provide more services, we also have partnership with insurance companies for clients requiring one-stop trade and credit insurance. So we are able to provide one-stop shop. And I'm sure with time, Euro-Exim Bank will be able to do much more or provide more solutions, especially that relates to or revolves around trade. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you, Anne, for that elaborate explanation from A to Z in regards to what you do at Euro-Exim Bank. And I believe the audience has a much better understanding about the instrument, the documentation, and everything that you could do to help them to make sure they're successful in their business. And so with that, I do see, let me look in the chat and see if there are some questions here from various people who are on Zoom. There's a question here. There are a couple of questions. The first question is from John Gasha, and he asks if he can apply if he has a registered business that is a sole proprietorship, right? So it's not a limited liability company, it's just a business name, he's a sole proprietor. Is there a condition of the type of business registration someone has to have in order for them to get a facility at your trade finance bank?
We deal mainly with private businesses, so I am not sure whether sole proprietor will be allowed or can do this. But again, I would want to know whether that is it is a registered, it is a form of business. But mainly we deal with corporately registered business or private companies.
Okay. Yes, so I mean, of course, sole proprietor is just your business name. You're the only sole proprietor. But I think that is where now I'm taking on the hat of Regal Africa, representing Africa Women in Trade. I would say, John, it is always advisable to have a limited liability company because you're based out of Kenya, because it opens up so many doors, because sometimes a sole proprietorship limits the opportunities you can take up in regards to access to market, access to finance, and even as you grow, you want to have the right kind of structure. And what the government of Kenya has made it very, very affordable for you to be able to set up. I'm interested in learning more about that or how you can be supported, then you can reach out to us at Africa Women in Trade. And then that will give you more opportunity, because as Anne has said, mostly they deal with corporates. And then of course, as she mentioned, there are personal guarantees. So I think the sole proprietorship structure might not be the best structure when you're trying to do international trade. Maybe you can use that locally, but when you're doing international, you probably want to go the way of registered limited liability company. All right, thank you, Anne. And I hope we answered your question, John. And yes, John, I do see that it's registered with a certificate, but as we mentioned, a sole proprietorship is just a business name under yourself. When you're trying to do big business, they want you to have a registered company with shares. In that case, that's why we're saying a limited liability company is the best kind of structure. And that's why it's advisable to go that direction. With a sole proprietorship, with a registered certificate, you do business in Kenya, no problem, right? But then as you try to do more global trade, they really want you to have a registered company with structures, with shares. So that's the best structure for you to do. But we can always talk about that offline and see how Anne can support you, or we at Regal Africa can support you in setting up a registered limited liability company. All right. So And the next question we have here is from Charles Bindo. So his question for you, Anne Munene, is this. What is the timeline between application for a letter of credit facility and issue guaranteed all factors perfect, right? So in an ideal situation, you've asked for, you've done the application, you've presented everything. What's that timeline looking ideally?
I would put it between 14 to 21 work days. We are able to do shorter, especially when it comes to when you're onboarding a client. Then if they want it done very fast, we have what we call gold processing, gold application, where we can onboard them within 24 hours. But I would say between 14 to 21 days. That's the most ideal time. However, I know we've issued LCs.
Okay. Also clarify for me, adding to that same question from Charles, is this for a new client or existing client? Because you mentioned earlier, if it's an existing client, then the usual KYC, you already have that. You don't need to go into that. So I'm assuming it would shorten the process. So this 14 to 21 days, is that a new application or an existing? Yeah.
Yes, that's a new application. Of course, one existing customer, because we have all their details, and that should be fast. I know in cases for repeat customer, for existing customers where we've issued LCs in days. So that is all possible. Okay. What I don't like is to overpromise. Sorry, Anne, I'm saying all I don't like is to overpromise. I would rather work with an average timeline. But again, I say I've known in cases where they've been issued within days and within a week.
Okay, so Anne, we will not quote you, we will just say 14 to 21 days. So if you do it faster, it's a good thing, right? So
yes, absolutely.
14 to 21 days is ideally. All right, so I think you've answered the question from Charles. We're still having more questions, and I do have to say, if you are interested in asking a question yourself, just raise your hand and Anne Munene will be able to answer that for you. So Anne, there's another question here from Rosemary Odo, and says she wanted you to clarify the 5,000 charge for the letter of credit and 3.5 to 7% is for guarantee. She wanted clarification on your charges, because you said there's a minimum transaction amount fee of $5,000 US. So she's trying to, is this in regards to everything, letter of credit, financial guarantee? I mean, like, what exactly is the 5,000? If you could answer that.
Okay, whatever the instrument that the trader is looking for, the charge is between 3.5 to 7.5 of the transaction value, whether that is letters of credit, performance guarantee, or bank guarantee. So 3.5 to 7.5% of the transaction value. However, the minimum charge for any transaction is £5,000. I hope I'm clear on that.
Yes, okay. So I hope, Rosemary, that was clear. There is a percentage based on risk, based on time, all the factors the Euro Exim Bank will look at, but the minimum is the 5,000, right? So that's why earlier, I think, Anne, you had mentioned that someone can ask for less than $100,000. But even if the 3.5 means it's less than 5,000, you have to pay the 5,000. Yes. So that's the minimum. But then it could be more depending on your transaction size. If you can clarify, Anne, there's a question here from Charles. When is the $5,000 payable for each transaction? Is it pre or post disbursement? Like when does business person pay the fee?
Okay, let me take you through the application process. Once we issue the application form and you complete it, then our back office team will be looking at the application. They come back and issue an eKYC link. Once you receive the eKYC link, that's where you're supposed to upload all the documents that we need, as discussed earlier. When you're doing the eKYC link, the customer need to pay either $500 or $100,000. $100,000 is what we call the fast track. You want your application, or you want to be onboarded within 24 hours. So that's the first point of payment when you're submitting the eKYC document. As you are doing that, we are looking or we are drafting the letters of credit or the bank guarantee. Now, once the drafts are ready, then all the parties will go through them, and if they're happy with the drafts, then they will stamp, they will sign, stamp, and seal. Now, once the document is stamped, signed, and sealed by both the buyer, the seller, and Euro-Exim Bank, then we raise an invoice of the issuing fee. Once we raise the once we issue the invoice, we ask that the customer makes payment. After the payment, the instrument is released or issued or transmitted. You see, this is where a lot of traders or a lot of business people have problems or have fears because they're not sure. They do not want to pay. They have a lot of questions, and I'm here to address all those questions, all those concerns. Now, a bank is issuing an irrevocable letter of credit or bank guarantee. Now, I would want you to sit in their shoes or be in their shoes for a minute. Would you issue a letter of credit promising payment without receiving payment yourself? At the same time, I understand where the trader is coming from. Like, I'm making this payment and the document has not been issued. So there we kind of have a hot moment. But to me, as long as the process has gone smoothly, then the traders or the customer should not have fears in paying the issuing fee. As a matter of fact, the reason I like working with Euro-Exim Bank is because you're paying directly to the bank that is issuing the documents. You are not paying to me or to another consultant. You are paying directly to Euro-Exim Bank. So we make payment, or customers make payment just before the instrument is issued. And then after the payment is made, then the document is issued.
Okay, thank you. I believe Charles got that. So it's you have to pay for that before the documents are issued. But Anne, as you know, that's where now, and I understand that is where a lot of businesses are like, how am I paying for something and I don't know? But earlier you mentioned the issue of trust. So I believe as more and more people start engaging with Euro-Exim Bank and seeing that the transactions are actually happening, then that idea of the cost being done before ceases to happen, right? Because you know that these things happen. I think a lot of people are afraid to pay upfront because they don't know if it will actually work out. But like you clearly stated in your presentation, your license, your global bank, so those things will eventually help the traders. So all of you just know that what she's saying is the bank also has to be paid before they issue this instrument. So review it as one of your options, but it's a really, really good option. And in business, it's all about taking a risk, right? No risk, no return, but you make a calculated risk. All right. So I don't see if anyone else who has a question? Does anyone else have a question before I ask Rosemary, and not Rosemary, sorry, Rosemary was the lady who had asked the question earlier around the 5,000 guarantee, and so she's clear on the answer. So that's why I said Rosemary. But anyone else have a question before Anne Monene can give us last remarks? Or maybe before, maybe Joy can ask something? All right, I do see Mr. John Gasha with his hands up. You can go ahead and unmute yourself, and Anne Monene would be glad to answer your question. All right.
Good evening, all of you. My question is, yeah, hi. My question is on, like for example, the business that I'm doing, I have a supplier in India. I have a supplier in India who has what I need to be supplied with, or maybe to sell. So when it comes now to Euro Exim Bank, you only offer the company, who is my supplier, the letter of credit. Now, what about maybe anything to do with clearing the payment of taxes? Does it come in also as well? Because when the goods arrive here, I'll also have to pay income tax and the import tax and VAT. Does it address that? Does the facility address that, or they address the cost of goods, or let's say maybe the CIF price of goods in Mombasa?
Okay, John, thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you for your question, John. Now, a letter of credit is a guarantee to your supplier that should you fail to pay them, Euro Exim Bank is obligated to make the payment. So it's a guarantee to the supplier that you pay them, on the strength of which they are willing to give you credit. So it does not involve any cash money or transactions. It's just a guarantee. So in this case, you will sort all the other bills that transaction that are required in that transaction. So you pay for the clearance, you pay for the custom, you pay for the taxes. I hope I'm clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Anne, for that. So there are different solutions for different things. What I'm hearing you, Anne, saying for yours is very specific to the supplier, but anything else, get money from your savings. I hope, John, you're saving, putting money aside when you're making business. Also, then you can go to different other financials to now pay for what you're talking about, the import tax, or these different other things that you need to make sure the transaction goes through. But this one is very specific for this particular transaction. All right, so thank you very much, John, for that question, and I hope it clarified to you. We also have Mabel Kroshi. Mabel, you can go ahead and unmute yourself, and Anne will be able to answer that question for you. Go ahead.
Yeah, hello, good afternoon. Thank you very much. In the presentation, you mentioned that you can work with others from other countries, companies from other countries. And I'm asking that, how do you establish the relationship? I mean, the business relationship, if you are outside, I think Kenya. Yes, that's the question.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. One thing that the pandemic taught us is that we can work from anywhere, whether at home or an office or on transit, we can work from anywhere. The world, there is no time the world became a global village like that time. So you realize that when we are talking about international trade, I sit in Kenya, offices in UK. of course, we all, it's a document. It's a document that speaks out for all of us. That's a meeting point for all of us. And you also know that we can also communicate through online via Zoom, via WhatsApp. So there's always a way of communicating. There's always a way of getting these documents across to each other. So we build relationship again online, and we are able to do business.
All right.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm okay with the answer. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. So, Anne, thank you for clarifying that. You know me, I'm in the service industry. I advise clients from all over the world, and that's why I say it's the beauty of technology. I mean, I'm here in Nairobi. Mabel is, I think she said she's in Nigeria. Joy is in Germany. Everyone is all over the world, but we can be able to speak to each other, see each other, and build relationships, because business is all about relationships. And as long as we use technology the right way, we'll be able to do more and more business. And now those barriers or limitations that were there in regards to information, in regards to service, in regards to all these different things are removed. And it doesn't matter where we are, we can do business. Zero Exim Bank is saying they're there to support the African SMEs. So if your local bank is not stepping up, there is a bank somewhere in the world that is saying we are ready to do this for you. We're a global community, and business is being transformed in this time as we use technology the right way. So I don't see any questions, but I do see Joy, the president of African Women in Trade. She's just so maybe Joy, you can say something before Anne gives us her last remark.
Yes, I was just enjoying the information. The information is also a very new area. As you understand, we are women in trade, and I know most of the people here, these are good information because you know banks with a different angle, and these are a bank with another angle of the whole trade, and has really will help us, most of us, to understand what possibilities are there outside. So this is something that we are very, very excited about. So. And it was, I would have had so many questions, but my questions are very baby foot, baby steps, yeah. So I'm gonna do those privately. But I really learned a lot, and I'm happy that we recorded this. Everybody can always go back and digest. Someone like me, I have to listen to it twice to really get to digest what does this really mean for me. These are really an eye-opener for somebody who's doing businesses, and how you can plug in, in your businesses, especially also in your country as well. So, and I'm sure this is not the last discussion we'll be having with you as well. So we'll be having more of you coming here with us. So thank you so much from my side. That's what I can say.
I do have to say, before Anne gives her last remarks, Joy, the reason we tell people to ask questions, you'll be surprised. The same question you're thinking is small is what somebody else is asking. They're just not sure how to ask it. So I always tell people, whatever you do, ask the question. It might be small or whatever, but it's going to definitely help somebody else, because we're here to share information and we are here to support business. So if you have a very burning question, you can ask, but if not, then you can always reach out to Anne after the webinar. And John Gasher is asking, who was the gentleman who was asking earlier the question, he's asking how he can go ahead and get in touch with Anne Monene. So I think because we're
now that you said that, let me just plug in my AWT in here so that you can really tell us, like an organization, an AWT, how can we really benefit from this, the products, and also the services we are offering. I know as individuals, as business people, they are really will come in, but as an organization like us putting this together, how can we plug in into these services and products as well?
I think that's a very open discussion that we should have, and explore ways how the organization as a whole can benefit from this. Yeah, it's very clear as an individual companies what can be done. But again, I would want to have that discussion as an organization. What is in it? What is there for you? So we are going to have that discussion.
Great. That's what I thought. So we'll follow up for this one, but thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jay, for asking that question. And now as we come towards the end of this workshop, where we're really talking about trade finance and the availability of it to African SMEs who definitely need it. That's one of the main challenges that we have here in Africa around financial solutions, access to finance, affordable finance. And I am glad that Anne Monene, you've been able to share with us what it is that Euro Exim Bank can do for us as SMEs in Africa. And so with that, I'll just ask you to give us your last remarks. And don't forget, there's a potential business person who's asking how they can get in touch with you. So go ahead and give us your last remarks and how we can contact you. And we look forward to engaging with you more as Euro Exim Bank for the African Women in Trade, because I think you have a lot that you can offer to our women who are ready to do business, who are ready to take it to the next level and just need the right support. So go ahead, Anne.
Okay, thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to share on trade finance today. It's been a joy. Thank you that we've had time to explore. We started with talking about the challenges that are there in international trade. We talked about lack of information, lack of trust, lack of security, lack of structure and documentation, and we also talked about payment. Now, we addressed those issues or challenges, and we came up with the solutions. The trade finance products that are not secured, where there is no structure, we'll do our best. It's collaboration between us and companies like Rigo Africa or African Women in Trade, who are able to bring in these structures and these documentations that are required to be able to do trade finance. We also talked about payment solutions that are available to overcome the challenges that face trade finance. We talked about specifically how at Euro Exim Bank, we are offering you trade finance instruments that are unsecured. We are also making sure that we are working with you through the process, through the journey, to make sure that you are comfortable with our application process, you are comfortable with the drafts that we'll be doing, you are comfortable with the payments, how the payment is made and when it's made. So all together to say that there are solutions out there that we should keep pursuing and look for information and explore what is out there. It's one thing to think that it's a solution and not do anything about it. It's another thing to say, hey, I need help. Explain it to me one more time. With time, you realize this is not, there is no rocket science in it. As a matter of fact, when I started or when I joined trade finance, I was just like you, I didn't know much. Yeah, and I came from a financial background. But with time, you realize once you start engaging in something or reading about it or enlightening yourself about a particular product, you become good at it, you understand it, and you're able to take the next step. So from Euro Exim Bank, would want you to stay ahead of the game, and we are here to help you. We are here to facilitate you. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you, Anne. We really appreciate you for taking the time on a Saturday to come in and share with us this very important information that I believe will transform a lot of businesses in Africa that need the funding. I really want to thank Joy and her team for making sure that African Women in Trade continuously does its job supporting African women in trade, or actually all businesses in Africa, but specifically women in trade. And also for me, who represents African Women in Trade in Kenya, I'm very happy that all of you joined in or will listen in, because what we're trying to do at African Women in Trade is to make sure we give you the right information, build your capacity, make sure you get the right finance, get the right market, because at this time, we cannot be left behind. And we do have the people amongst us who have this solutions and they've created this platform. So I would encourage you to be a member of Africa Women in Trade. I would encourage you to follow us on social media. And I'll already encourage you also to make sure that every time you hear that there is a workshop happening, whether it's in Kenya or in any other country, you join in, listen in, and share with your network of business people, because we cannot do it alone. We can only do it together. And yeah, and so with that, thank you very much. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Okay, and I think you'll share my contact. Sorry, I forgot about